นมัสการเจ้าค่ะขอโอกาส So I'm very sorry if I have been asking too many questions, and this might take some time. Believe me, before I ask these questions, I have to put down embarrassment because it's a personal question. But it has been the question that I have in my mind, and I cannot ask any หลวงพ่อหลวงพี่ because we have to talk Thai. And when it comes to Thai language, it's very difficult because we have protocol, we have, vocabulary that I need to be aware of. But with you, I feel more relaxed that I can just talk to you in English. So it's from heart to heart. I actually have 3 questions. The first one is on negativity. The second one is perfectionism. And the last one is about craving for knowledge. So on to my first point. For the past 47 years, I have been living yin and yang environment. So if you know what I mean, the opposite, the opposite. But life has been fine because you do your thing, I do my thing. Yeah. And then when we're together, it's fine. But after retirement, things changed because we have to come back and do things together. And this is where problem arises. So my question to you is how you would suggest that I deal with a person with negativity as well as being Mr. Right. But it's not the right that we are talking about. It's the legal right that, the judge, so this is it. So this is the sentence. This is the verdict. It's different from the right view that we are talking about. And the person is nowhere near the way to Yatha Bhutayana Tasana, if you know what I mean. So you taught me the other day that whenever I have to make decision or when it comes to, the road, the fog on the road, you teach me to use my mindfulness, my awareness, and my wisdom. And then you told me that I would find the way. So I follow you wholeheartedly. So I explore and experiment during my meditation to find the answer to this situation. And based on what you have taught for the past 3 days and a half, it was lots of things was still clear to me. It's like an arrow pierced into my heart. So I wonder if this is the right way that I approach the problem. I took the starting point, which is so paradox, that is the end at the same place. This is the first time I really understand with my mind and my heart that where dukkha is where dukkha ends. It's so paradox, Phra Ajahn, but it was, So should I or will I have to accept? Yes, I have to accept that. Grin and bear it, you have no choice. You have to live with it. You have to live with this environment. All right, grin and bear it. And then Phra Ajahn Jiew said, no, not only that, you do it with delight, delightfully accepting this. Said, delightfully accepting this. Be patient, be generous, and tried. Then your second exit just popped up into my mind. And Luang Por Sumeto's teaching was sort of like giving the answer to me. Yeah. Like, but don't want. So, dislike, but don't move it to Vibhava Tanha. I don't know the English word for that. Yeah, Vibhava Tanha. So I said, is this the answer? You told me that I would feel that is the right answer. I would know it myself. In my heart, in my mind, I feel that, it's Eureka. Okay. So my tear was running down. This is it. But of course, it's easily said. then done. Take it. Then do we have to practice to make perfect? And the answer is yes. I said, oh my God, how can I reach that point? When the Buddha took, like 4 สงไขยแสนมหากรัป to become this light, how long will I take to just get at least end the suffering? Or shall I keep on practicing and pray that the cultivation of my practice will lead me to the way to end the suffering? So that's my first question on negativity.
Let's just stay there.
Okay.
Because that's already 10 minutes. So, I don't make, as I said, I don't make people's decisions for them. But in terms of Dhamma practice, if we're really practicing and embodying the Dhamma, then we're working with what's right here. So what you're describing is that, this, you bring this to mind, and it's the situation is suddenly crystal clear, but it's like an arrow to your heart. So what you're talking about now is this is the, oh dear, what do I do with this feeling? That's what's here now. So that's what we work with. The if this is the case, then what does it imply? And so that's, rather than trying to think our way to a solution or a plan to do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, in this moment, to use the practice to look at exactly that feeling. It's like, oh, well, that being the case, what does that say about these aspects of my life? Oh, and that's that sense of being challenged, or being a kind of bittersweet mixture of certainty and fear. That's what's here. So that's what we work with, rather than trying to climb over that to get to a place of clarity on the other side. So again, I feel so grateful for Luang Por Sumedho's teachings in that area, because he'd say we're always trying to climb over a doubt to get to certainty, or climbing over aversion to get to loving kindness. Instead, just be practicing loving kindness for your aversion. To welcome the doubt, like, oh, well, if this is the case, what do I do now? Well, if this is the case, what do I do now? Feeling. That's what's here. And so then, rather than trying to make that go away, or come up with a kind of a logical solution to that puzzle, just to be with that mixture of feelings, that is the practice of the Dhamma. So bittersweet is generally the flavor of life. And that it's I found just simply naming what is present is very simple, but is extraordinarily powerful, because I got the kind of mind that loves solutions. You might have guessed that. I used to read encyclopedias when I was a child, because I wanted to know everything and understand everything. I wanted to have an answer for everything. And even if I didn't really know, I would fake it. And so I confess that, but to have the wisdom to not know, to be knowing the unknown. Right, in this moment, it's not clear what the way forward is. I found that because I do have a strong tendency to want to figure it all out, have a clear plan, and to know exactly how things are, it was so helpful just to follow the advice of the teachers, and to let that quality of mainer, uncertainty, be there in the picture, and the simple naming of what is present, even if it's just a large, complicated, and painful doubt, to say that's what's present, and it's mysterious, it's weird. Now, just by saying this is oh my goodness, this is exactly what I didn't want to happen, and what on earth do I do with this feeling? then even though it's like a kind of huge, complicated tangle, just stepping back and go, oh, this is the presence of a huge, complicated tangle. That's what this is. That's what this is like. Then strangely, we find a way of working with it that wasn't apparent when we identified with the tangle, and it's my tangle, but I've got to do something right. I've got to get the right way to untangle it. So over and over again, I found that just not taking refuge in figuring it all out, making a plan, but just naming exactly what is present, and then trusting the intuitive wisdom to relate to the situation.
กราบนมัสการพระอาจารย์ค่ะ There are two questions, if I may, but it depends. The answer can be succinct. First one, both regarding the practice, my practice. The first one is to do with metta. Maybe I should do it in Thai because it relates to Tan Jiew's idea of pramod. He mentions it last year and this year again. เพื่อจะให้คือปราโมทย์เนี่ยเมื่อวันก่อนได้สัมผัสโดยมันเกิดขึ้นเองโดยไม่ได้ตั้งใจนะคะแต่หลังจากนั้นก็อยากจะลองดูว่าถ้าเผื่อที่ท่านจิ๋วพูดถึงว่าให้ตอนเดินจงกรมให้พูดว่าขอฉันเป็นสุขขอฉันเป็นสุขเนี่ยก็ลองพูดดูในใจแล้วก็รู้สึกว่ามันแข็งขัดก็เลยใช้วิธียิ้มเหมือนกับแผ่เมตตาให้ตัวเองแล้วก็รู้สึกว่ามันราบรื่นขึ้นก็อยากจะเรียนถามว่ามันวิธีที่เราเหมือนกับพยายามจะสร้างความรู้สึกที่ดีอย่างเมตตาหรือความยิ้มเนี่ยมันเป็นสิ่งที่จะกลายเป็นอะไรที่เฟกหรือเปล่าหรือว่าเป็นสิ่งที่โอเคที่จะพัฒนาต่อนะคะอันนั้นคำถามที่หนึ่งคำถามที่สองเกี่ยวกับการพิจารณาเวลาที่อาจจะบอกว่าจะนั่งสมาธิแล้วค่อนข้างสงบก็ยังไม่สงบนิ่งคือโยมบางทีเหมือนกับสวิตช์ออฟไปเลยแต่ว่าถ้าเผื่อเหมือนกับมันอาจจะหลับแต่มันไม่เหมือนหลับนะคะแต่ว่ามันสวิตช์ออฟไปเลยแต่ว่าถ้าจะคิดเนี่ยก็นึกถึงสถานการณ์ในชีวิตจริงบางอย่างที่อยากจะเอามาดูวิเคราะห์แต่ก็เกิดความกลัวที่จะทำก็เลยอยากจะเรียนถามว่ามันควรจะเป็นการคิดท่านพูดถึงไตรลักษณ์ทุกขังอนิจจังอนัตตาคิดแบบทฤษฎีคิดในเชิงปรัชญาหรือว่ามันควรจะเอาตัวอย่างจากชีวิตจริงของเรามาคิดเจ้าค่ะนั่นคำถามที่สอง
คำถามแรกก่อนเรื่องของปราโมทย์คือเวลาที่จะมาแนะนำเรื่องการเจริญเมตตาโดยการสร้างคำนะอย่างเช่นขอฉันเป็นสุขขอเขาเป็นสุขก็เป็นอุบายเป็นวิธีเท่านั้นเองนะเวลาที่ทำจริงอะไรก็ตามที่ทำให้เกิดอารมณ์ที่เรียกว่าเมตตาอารมณ์ที่เป็นกุศลแบบนี้ก็ใช้ได้ทั้งนั้นนะไม่ว่าจะเป็นการท่องบทแผ่เมตตาอาตมาเคยไปทำกับเด็กๆป .6 นะแล้วปกติเด็กๆป .6 ที่โรงเรียนในเมืองไทยตามชนบทก็จะถูกบังคับนะให้นั่งสมาธิเดินแบบเข้าแถวเรียงเป็นระเบียบแล้วทุกคนนั่งสมาธินะปฏิบัติอะไรอย่างเงี้ยเหมือนทหารเลยแล้วเราก็จะเห็นว่าเด็กก็จะยุกยิกนะใช่ไหมไม่ถึง1 นาที 2 นาทีก็จะเอาศอกกระแทกกันอย่างเงี้ยนะแต่มาเห็นเข้าก็เราก็คงทำอะไรไม่ได้ในภาพรวมก็รับผิดชอบเฉพาะห้องที่ไปช่วยสอนก็เลยขอว่าขอให้เด็กๆมานั่งในห้องตามปกตินะแล้วเวลาช่วงนั่งสมาธิอาตมาก็นำเองอาตมาก็สอนเด็กๆว่ามีใครท่องคำแผ่เมตตาได้บ้างอะไรเงี้ยซึ่งปรากฏว่าทุกคนท่องได้แต่ท่องเป็นแบบว่าในโรงเรียนนะท่องแบบเปล่าๆแบบว่าสัพเพสัตตาสัตว์ทั้งหลายที่เป็นเพื่อนทุกข์เกิดแก่เจ็บตายด้วยกันทั้งหมดทั้งสิ้นคือมันไม่มีความหมายนะอาตมาก็บอกว่าคราวนี้ลองท่องเนี่ยในใจนะแล้วนึกถึงคุณพ่อคุณแม่ไปด้วยปรากฏว่าบรรยากาศทั้งห้องมันเงียบเก็บแล้วก็เรารู้สึกเลยว่าเด็ก ตั้งใจแล้วก็อยู่ในความสงบนะแล้วหลังจากนั้นก็ถามเขาว่าทำแล้วรู้สึกยังไงเด็กก็จะบอกว่ามีความสุขนะอันเนี้ยนะคืออุบายในการทำเนี่ยนะก็แล้วแต่ว่าใครถนัดเหมือนกับถ้าในอ่าอาตมาเคยไปนำสมาธิภาวนาเรื่องเมตตาภาวนาที่จิตเฮิร์สแล้วก็มีพระขาวคนหนึ่งก็บอกว่าอาจารย์ your guided meditation ruined my meditation
That
เพราะ
can
ว่า
happen. That can happen.
So I have to apologize for that คืออาตมาก็ไปนำสมาธิภาวนาเมตตาแบบที่เราแบบแผนที่เราทำกันไงก็ตั้งต้นที่ตัวเองอย่างเงี้ยนะถ้าคนตะวันตกจำนวนมากก็ไม่ได้มี self hatred ตั้งต้นงี้ไม่ได้งั้นตั้งต้นที่คุณพ่อคุณแม่ไม่ได้ นึกถึงคุณพ่อคุณแม่ก็เกิดท็อกซิกในความรู้สึกขึ้นมาก็เพราะฉะนั้นเราก็มักจะหาวิธีอย่างเช่นว่าอาจจะตั้งต้นที่ลูกแมวตั้งต้นที่ลูกหมาอะไรที่มันง่ายก่อนหรือไม่ก็ถ้าเป็นคนก็อาจจะภาวนาเมตตาให้กับคนคนนั้นแต่ตอนเขาอายุ5-6 ขวบนึกภาพเนี่ยก็จะเพื่อให้เกิดอารมณ์เมตตาขึ้นมาได้คือในขณะที่ฝึกเนี่ยเราก็ต้องใช้เทคนิคสารพัดใช่ไหมแต่อาตมาเคยอ่านนะของหลวงปู่ล่าเวลาท่านไปธุดงค์นะเมตตาของท่านไม่ยากเลยนะท่านไปบอกว่าต่างคนต่างอยู่เด้ออย่างเงี้ย อันนี้ก็เมตตาแล้วนะที่กลับมาถึงเรื่องปราโมทย์ทีหนึ่งว่าอาตมาว่ามันมีหนทางหลายหนทางที่จะทำให้เกิดขึ้นคืออาตมาก็นึกสงสัยเหมือนกันว่าทำไมญาติโยมเนี่ยไปวิตกกังวลกับเรื่องการสร้างอารมณ์ที่เป็นสุขนะทำราวๆกับว่ามันแบบสร้างง่ายหรือว่ามันมีเยอะมากอย่างเงี้ยในขณะที่ในชีวิตประจำวันเราไม่เคยวิตกกังวลเรื่องการสร้างอารมณ์ที่เป็นทุกข์เลยนะเราสร้างกันเก่งมากอย่างเช่นความโกรธอย่างเงี้ยเวลาโกรธขึ้นมาเนี่ยเราไม่เคยแบบว่าอ๋อเราโกรธแล้วตอนนี้ความโกรธยังอยู่ความไม่ความโกรธหายไปส่วนใหญ่เราจะแบบเราโกรธเราไม่พอใจทำไมมาพูดนี้กับเราทำอย่างนี้ได้ยังไงเราทำดีกับตั้งเยอะทำไมมาทำอย่างนี้กับเราอย่างเงี้ยเราคิดปรุงแต่งขึ้นไปใช่ไหมการคิดปรุงแต่งทำไงส่งผลยังไงกับเราก็คือทำให้อารมณ์โกรธของเรามันเพิ่มขึ้นขยายขึ้นจริงไหมจนถึงขีดหนึ่งเราก็จัดการกับมันไม่ได้จนก็ต้องออกมาเป็นคำพูดหรือเป็นการกระทำซึ่งเราก็เสียใจอ้าวเราเก่งเรื่องนี้ทำไมเราไม่เอาความเก่งเรื่องนี้มาใช้กับเรื่องเป็นกุศลนะเราก็ใช้แบบเดียวกันกับเมตตาว่าก็ตอนแรกมันอาจจะเฟกมันอาจจะดูเหมือนไม่จริงก็เป็นเรื่องปกติใช่ไหมมันยังไม่เกิดขึ้นแต่พอจากเนี้ยเราขยายมันทำให้มันเกิดมากขึ้นทำให้เกิดชำนาญในบทสวดภาษาไทยก็บอกว่าทำให้ชำนาญให้เป็นยวดยานของใจตั้งไว้เป็นนิจนะแผ่ไปทั่วโลกทุกสถานที่ท่านอาจารย์พาสวดเมตตาสหคเตนะเจตสานี่คือแผ่ไปกว้างขวางอย่างนั้นคือเรียกทำจนกระทั่งชำนาญเรียกเอามาใช้เมื่อไหร่ก็ได้อันเนี้ยแล้วมันจะช่วยได้ว่าถ้าเราชำนาญแบบนี้พอจิตเป็นปราโมทย์ก็เข้าข่ายอย่างที่วันก่อนที่ท่านอาจารย์อธิบายว่าพอมาถึงปราโมทย์ปุ๊บมันก็ไปปิติไปปัสสธิไปสุขก็สมาธิสำหรับอาตมาเนี่ยมันเป็นเหมือนชุมสายอันหนึ่งเลยงั้นตอบอันนี้ก่อนเนาะอีกคำถามหนึ่งขอเป็นท่านอาจารย์เป็นคำถามเกี่ยวกับเรื่องการพิจารณา
So does that answer your questions? Him speaking about his experience of having ruined the Anagarika's meditation. There's when I was in living in America, one of the local Buddhist centers, they had a meditation day long, and the title of it was "I Hate Metta," because it's very common that maybe more for Westerners than for Thai people, but Asian people, but when metta is say mishandled, it becomes a kind of sentimentality. As Luang Por Sumedho would put it, it's like trying to think pink. Yeah, may I be happy? May all beings be happy? Like a kind of Walt Disney type. It's kind of a sentimental attitude. And so when he first came to England in 1977, and he did a guided metta meditation very much according to the way of he'd learned in Wat Pah Pong, say spreading loving kindness. May I be happy. May all the insects be happy. May the birds be happy. May the worms be happy. May all the people in Bung Wai and in Bangkok and in Warin and Ubon, may all beings be happy. And then at the end of the meditation, then one of the people, maybe several of the people there said, Ajahn Sumedho, that is so annoying. So annoying that and it's like this kind of trying to overlay everything with a kind of veneer of sweetness, and that was not just one person. He realized, oh, that was quite regularly the reaction, and that this way of the idea of metta and spreading it out in terms of categories of beings and around the sort of geographical sort of radiating around you, but it gave this impression of like a sort of creating a kind of Walt Disney type world. Everything, wouldn't it be nice? He would put it, wouldn't it be nice if everything was nice, and a kind of childish sweetness? And he realized, well, this doesn't work here. So he changed the language of it, and he started talking about metta as not dwelling in aversion, like Ajahn Jiew was mentioning. And I like the phrase radical acceptance, because metta does have that outgoing quality for sure. You know, radiating kindness over the entire world. It's right there in the sutta. You know, but I feel that the heart of metta, like the breath, it has an expressive part of the breath. We breathe out, so metta has that expressive, radiating quality. But like the breath, the main part of the breath is the in-breath, taking the oxygen in. That's the main piece. The out-breath is the kind of leftovers. That's the carbon dioxide going out. Chiang? And so the main purpose of the breath is to get the oxygen in. So I was in exactly the same way. The heart of metta is that acceptance, that openness of heart. So radical acceptance, I would say, is the heart of metta. And then having accepted in this moment, life is exactly this way, then the response to that, or the natural follow-on from that receptivity is a benevolence towards yourself and other beings. But the heart of it is that it's very close to upekkha. It's a kind of openness to the way things are, equanimity, and so I would say sometimes I put it that metta ripens in upekkha. That if you start off with that radical acceptance as an attitude, saying this is the way it is in this moment, whether I like it or I don't like it, here it is. Whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable, here it is. Whether I like this being or I don't like this being, here they are. So that establishing that radical acceptance that everything belongs, then when that matures and gets stronger and more profound, that takes shape as upekkha, serenity. And I think maybe in that little booklet, serenity is the final word. I think I might even say that in that book. I forget. I've done a lot of books. I can't remember what I said in which of them. But I feel it's helpful to metta as acceptance, as a radical acceptance. Like everything belongs. Doesn't mean that. And also, when Luang Por would speak about that and not dwelling in aversion, he'd say acceptance does not mean approval. So accepting that your family member is dishonest and has been, your brother's been stealing from you for years, you might accept it, but doesn't mean you approve of it. It's like, my brother is like that, or that your father's an alcoholic. Well, you don't like it, you don't approve of it, but there it is. So I realize the words might sound almost identical, like responding and reacting. I think, well, what's the difference? But acceptance is not the same as approving. Acceptance is, here it is. Whether I like it or not, this is the way it is. Like the temperature, it's hot and it's humid. It's now 81 degrees here in this hall. Humidity feels like about 80%, maybe more. That's the way it is. We don't have to try to make ourselves like it. I'll say, I'm glad that the weather is hot and sticky, but here it is. And we realize that if we are, say, would prefer it to be a bit cooler or a little bit drier, okay, we might prefer that. But in this moment, it's exactly this way. So if we can get a sense for the difference between those two, acceptance and approval, that is a profound basis for peace of mind. So, because sometimes when we talk about a non-attachment or acceptance, and again, Luang Por Sumedho, he discovered that people would feel like the practice of metta was trying to make yourself like everything. And he'd say, no, it's not. You can't like the unlikable. If you've had a headache for 3 days, it's not likable. If you've had a broken leg that continually aches and doesn't work properly, you can't like it, but here it is. And you work with the way things are. So you're accepting it, saying, well, it is this way, but you're not pretending that you're not trying to make yourself like it. And so over and over again, in those early days in the late 70s, early 80s, over and over again, Luang Por will be explaining this, many Dhamma talks, that metta doesn't mean trying to like the unlikable. That's impossible. People being violent, being dishonest, being cruel, that's not likable, but it's the way the world is. I was at a Buddhist teachers conference in Europe and a number of years ago, and there was a very interesting sort of coincidence of two of the people that were there. One was a nun who had just had her foot amputated. She had a cancer in her foot, in her ankle, and she had just had her foot cut off, and just a few weeks before. And it was wintertime. It was December. It was in Switzerland, in Beatenberg retreat center. There's a lot of snow on the ground, and she was going out for walks every day, and she was incredibly cheerful, not just sort of putting a brave face on it, but she was like, "Oh, this foot's better than the last one I had. This one's really good in the snow," and she was. She obviously didn't like the fact that she had cancer and had her foot cut off. She was a young woman, she was about 40-ish, and but yet it was absolutely not a problem. She didn't like it. She would have preferred to have both feet, but she was able to fully accept. Here it is. I had cancer in my foot. My ankle had this huge tumor, so they couldn't do anything else except cut my foot off. So okay, I've now got one foot and half the number of toenails to cut. She was very, very impressive. And also at the same teacher meeting, there was someone who had become extremely famous in his country of origin and was very obviously happy to be famous. And we're all in the same room together for 4 or 5 days, and he was not to be rude, but he was quite proud, and and his fame was something very precious to him, and was sort of casually mentioning about the books, his books being published, and another TV interview, and the contrast, these two good beings kind of side by side in the same meeting. I kept sort of find myself looking for, well, who do I want to follow? The nun with the one foot, or the very successful Dharma teacher who's got all kinds of stellar book reviews and is constantly being asked to lead very expensive workshops and seminars and such like. And it was a very I felt she was a really good example of that. radical acceptance and having metta for her own body and for her living situation. That is a really good example. We don't have to have those extreme situations in our life. Small discomforts and inconveniences come to all of us all the time. But if we can get a feeling for the difference between those two, I feel that's extremely valuable. And also, just while I'm talking about it, the difference between responding and reacting. Is that clear to people? Please say no if it's not, because maybe just a little bit more. So to react means if you like something, you chase after it. You want to get hold of it. You want the danha is triggered immediately, and you like something, you want it, you chase after it. You dislike something, the mind immediately judges that's a bad person, he's an idiot, how can he be that way, what a fool. We react. So we believe in our moods, dham arom. There's no space around the mood or the judgment. This is good, it's delicious. This is bad, it's disgusting. This is beautiful. Not I'm experiencing a beautiful sensation by tasting this or hearing this or smelling this or seeing this, but rather this is beautiful, this is disgusting. I approve, I disapprove. This is good, that's bad. So to react is just to believe our moods, to believe our judgments as absolute facts. If you spell it out, say, I believe that my judgment is an absolute truth, then it wouldn't hold together, But we don't spell it out. We just dham arom. We kind of follow the mood and the impulse, and we don't realize that we're saying this is an absolute good, and therefore I should have it. This is an absolute bad, therefore if it was destroyed, that would be a good thing. So that's reaction, is where there's no space around our moods, our judgments. So, and I was using that as a way of talking about indriya sangwarn, or lack of indriya sangwarn, indriya sangvara. So in English you translate that as restraint of the senses. So that's usually interpreted as something like, if you're walking along, keeping your eyes down, or not, not seeking out, exciting or dangerous entertainment and such like, so restraining the senses. But I feel it's more realistic and more tangible to be seen in these terms. So if we are unrestrained in the senses, then we are reactive. We're believing in our impulses, our moods, our judgments, and taking them to be real. To be responsive is to have a bit of space around the arom, the moods. When we dislike something, rather than like that person's an idiot, I hate them, that if there's responsivity, it's like, oh, well, I didn't like what he said. That brought a reaction, didn't it? And so you notice that the mind has reacted. You don't believe in it, but you've seen that it's happened. That somebody spoke and you were, well, how can he say that? In the political arena, this is many opportunities to explore that. So if you like something, say, oh, that was delicious. Do I really need to have more of it? Is there somebody else who would like some too? Or just that because I'm hungry and because that's my favorite thing and they cook it very well here, my mind goes, yes, at the first mouthful. That's just the reaction. And then you notice, okay, second mouthful, not quite so strong, third mouthful, fourth mouthful, it's become ordinary. Look at that. So responsivity is allowing there to be space around our likes, our dislikes, our judgments, attraction, aversion. So that it's basically if and prior to that, if there's sati sampajanya, mindfulness and full awareness, or intuitive awareness, as Luang Por Sumedho would put it, then that supports responsivity. The stronger the sati sampajanya, the more the responsivity. If there's not much sati sampajanya, then there's more reactivity. So that when we're responsive rather than reactive, if somebody praises us and says, you're a wonderful person, I really love you so much, then it depends on your character, but you might feel that glow of, oh, that's very lovely. That person is happy to have me around. but you won't get drunk on that praise or think, oh, she's so wise. She thinks I'm wonderful. What a wise, discerning person. She thinks I'm great. Like there's that, the sweetness of being praised. Or when you're criticized, someone says you're an idiot, or that you make bad judgments, or you're a very unreliable person, and they don't trust you. Then you think, well, rather than getting defensive or aggressive towards that person, that's an idiot. How can he say that? What a fool! Well, he's a stupid person anyway. Then to hear that and say, okay, well, it's a shame that person doesn't like to have me around, that they see me in that way. Well, I can't control how they see me, and I can work with being what I would relate to being misunderstood or misrepresented. They see me in that way. That's their business. I can try to explain that they're not seeing the whole picture, or I see it differently. But if they're determined to see me in that way, that's their business. So to be responsive is giving more space around your own reactions, the way people relate to you, the way the world is. So life gets a lot more peaceful the more responsivity there is, and the less reactivity. So that's called Indriya Sangwon, restraint of the senses. And so in the suttas, it's not spelt out in quite that way, but I feel it's in our everyday lives, that's a helpful way of looking at that area. So someone who's practicing Indriya Sangwon, it means they're a nun or they're a monk, and they always keep their eyes down, and they're very modest in their speech and their actions. Well, yes, but I feel it's bigger than that. I don't know if you would add anything. Mm-hmm.
จะขอโอกาสท่านอาจารย์ตอบคำถามที่สองสั้นๆว่าพอจิตสงบแล้วนะหรือสงบพอสมควรนะไม่ต้องสงบมากก็ได้เพราะว่าไม่งั้นก็จบรีทรีตนี้ก็อาจจะไม่ได้พิจารณานะก็ไม่เป็นไรคือหลวงพ่อชาบอกว่าสงบพอสมควรคือเราจะรู้ว่าเราสงบพอที่จะพิจารณาได้ก็ดูจากตัวการพิจารณานั่นเองคือถ้าพิจารณาไปแล้วราบรื่นก็แสดงว่าใช้ได้นะแต่ถ้าสมมติพิจารณาไปแล้วมันก็ยังติดขัดก็วางได้นะเราไม่จำเป็นจะต้องบังคับตัวเองว่ามันต้องพิจารณาให้มันเจ็บเด็ดเสร็จเด็ดขาดก็คือพิจารณาแล้วติดขัดแล้วยังไม่ราบรื่นก็กลับมาอยู่ที่กับลมหายใจหรือว่าเวลาที่บอกว่าจะพิจารณาเรื่องบางเรื่องที่เป็นปัญหาก็กลัวก็ลองก่อนนะถ้าลองไปอย่างนี้มันไม่อยากไปต่อก็กลับวางรอให้พร้อมก่อนก็ได้ก็ด้วยเหตุนี้อาตมาก็เลยมักจะแนะนำหรือสนับสนุนว่าถ้าเราสร้างสุขให้เกิดขึ้นในจิตใจด้วยการภาวนาถ้าจิตนิ่งเป็นสมาธิก็มีสุขผสานอยู่แล้วหรือถ้ามีปราโมทย์ไปกอบอยู่แล้วเนี่ยจะเป็นจิตที่พร้อมจะพิจารณาคือมีความสุขแล้วมันไม่ค่อยกลัวความทุกข์ที่ทุกข์เพราะว่าจิตมันทุกข์ก็กลัวจะเจอทุกข์แล้วมันจะทุกข์ยิ่งไปขึ้นไงใช่ไหมอันนี้นำความเห็นอาตมานะถ้าพัฒนาจิตให้เป็นสุขแล้วมันก็พร้อมที่จะมองทุกข์แต่ทีนี้ว่าพิจารณาโดยที่อิงเรื่องหลักของไตรลักษณ์เป็นยังไงอาตมาว่าก็เอาประสบการณ์ตรงของเราเป็นหลักในเบื้องต้นอาจจะคิดก่อนก็ได้อย่างที่ท่านอาจารย์สอนเรื่องปฏิจจสมุปบาทเรื่องหลักการเรื่องอะไรอย่างเงี้ยแล้วที่พอตัวพิจารณาจริงๆก็คือต้องเอาตัวประสบการณ์หรือตัวปัญหาของเราเองแหละเอามานั่งมองที่มองเนี่ยมองเข้าไปยังไงว่าส่วนใหญ่ที่ทุกข์มันจะต้องมีการยึดตรงใดตรงหนึ่งเราก็ไปมองอาการว่าที่เรายึดมันยึดตรงไหนแล้วการตัวที่เรายึดเนี่ยมันเกิดขึ้นมาจากอะไรอันนี้อาตมาว่าหลักของปฏิจจสมุปบาทก็อาจจะมาช่วยได้ว่าการความชอบความไม่ชอบของเรามันเกิดจากการปรุงแต่งเรื่องอะไรเราคาดหวังอะไรเรามีความต้องการอะไรตัณหาของเรามันคืออะไรแล้วพอเราพิจารณาไปเรื่อยๆน้อมไปเรื่อยๆก็เห็นว่าเอาเข้าจริงความคิดของเราความชอบของเรามันก็เป็นสิ่งที่มันเกิดขึ้นตามเหตุตามปัจจัยมันก็ไม่แน่ไม่นอนอะไรแล้วมันก็เปลี่ยนนะแล้วพอเราเห็นว่ามันก็ ไม่คงที่มันเป็นอนิจจังอันนี้มันก็ลงไตรลักษณ์นะคือดีที่สุดก็ต้องเอาตัวประสบการณ์ตรงเลยนะมันถึงจะแก้ปัญหาได้ เพราะว่าถ้าไปคิดในเรื่องของในเชิงทฤษฎีมันก็เป็นประโยชน์ในแง่ความเข้าใจ แต่ว่ามันยังไม่ไปแก้ปัญหามันก็มีประโยชน์เหมือนกัน แต่ว่าถ้าจะแก้ปัญหาชีวิตที่มันมีให้ได้ก็ต้องลงไปในระดับที่ให้เห็นเป็นประสบการณ์ตรงเลยว่าอ๋อตรงนี้นี่เองที่เราติดนะเพราะว่าเราไม่เห็นว่าเราไปคิดว่านี่คือตัวตนของเรานะแล้วคือก็ลองไปทบทวนว่ากี่ครั้งกี่หนที่เราทุกข์มันมาจากการที่เรายึดนะตัวตนของเราว่ามันต้องเป็นอย่างนี้นะมันควรเป็นอย่างนี้มันไม่ควรจะเป็นอย่างนี้ไอ้ความคิดว่ามันควรจะเป็นอย่างนี้หรือไม่ควรจะเป็นอย่างนี้มันมาจากไหนมันก็มาจากการแบบสั่งสมของเรามาจากเหตุปัจจัยทั้งหลายทั้งปวงถ้าสมมุติเราไปเป็นอีกคนหนึ่งเราไปอยู่ในอีกครอบครัวหนึ่งเราอาจจะไม่คิดอย่างนี้เลยหรือไปอยู่อีกวัฒนธรรมหนึ่งก็อาจจะไม่คิดอย่างนี้เลยแล้วก็เริ่มเห็นความไม่แน่ไม่นอนของไอ้ความที่เราเรียกว่าเป็นตัวเราใช่ไหมแล้วลองน้อมไปอยู่อย่างเงี้ยหรือพิจารณาตัวกายของเราในแง่ของไตรลักษณ์เนี่ยก็จะช่วยให้คลายความยึดถือในตัวเราได้ เพราะว่ารากฐานของการยึดทั้งหลายทั้งปวงก็มาจากตัวเรา ความกลัวทั้งหลายมันก็มาจากตัวเราด้วย ก็เป็นการซ้อมไว้ก่อนนะแล้วพอเนี่ยอย่างที่อาตมาบอกว่าถ้าจะไปลงไปสู่ตัววิปัสสนาอย่างแท้จริงก็ต่อเมื่อพัฒนาจิตให้สงบเป็นสมาธิโดยธรรมชาติ แล้วก็จิตจะหยิบขึ้นมาพิจารณาเองนี่
So, yes, one in the middle here.
กราบนมัสการพระอาจารย์ค่ะ I think 2 years ago I came to the retreat here with Phra Ajahn and I asked one question about how do I forgive myself and you kindly explained to me that the feeling of guilt is not necessarily a bad thing because that means one has hiriotappa as long as we don't hold on to it until it creates dukkha. So I would like to kind of have further advice from you on any particular practice or the way of thinking that I should be doing in order to put down the feeling of guilt and don't hold on to it too much.
What's your name?
Natjaya.
Ratseya.
Natjaya.
Nataya. So, a very simple practice is if Nataya was your friend instead of being you, how would you feel about say, oh, I feel very guilty, I'm a bad person because of XYZ. If your friend Natya said that to you, what's your immediate feeling?
So I would give her advice that don't.
Well, so
it's okay.
if you imagine that she was your friend instead of being you, and she says to you, I feel guilty because of XYZ in my life, then what would your immediate feeling be towards your friend Natya?
I feel I want her to be happy and forget about it.
There you
It's
go.
okay.
Very simple exercise. There was a bhikkhu who was about to go on tudong in Europe, an Austrian bhikkhu who grew up in a Catholic, Austria is mostly a Catholic country. And so Catholic Christianity, they have a big guilt program. You're born guilty in the Catholic tradition. It's called original sin. So the very fact of your birth is you're participating in some kind of unwholesome action. So that's a tough place to start from. So many people who come from a Catholic background have a lot of problems with guilty feelings. So he was about to go off on tudong, and he said in Austria, and he said, "So do you have any advice for me? I have my Catholic background gives me a tremendous amount of guilt and self-criticism." And I said exactly the same to him, but not a different name. So I said, "Yeah, if Tan Balado was your friend instead of being you, what would your immediate feeling be towards him? He just started crying. Like, he said, "Thank you, Ajahn." That's all the advice he needed. I was quite impressed. But that is a simple exercise, but it's so automatic. If this person who has done different things in their life, made mistakes, if they say that to you, then immediately the heart goes towards compassion and forgiveness without a second thought. Chiang? Yeah, and so I've been doing that exercise with people for more than 30 years. 100% of people I've asked that question to, literally. No one has ever said, well, actually, I would tell them. Never. Not once. Because most people, they don't know why I'm suggesting that. But not one time. And literally, more, maybe 35, maybe 40 years now. No, 35 years maybe. And every single time, the heart immediately, automatically goes forgiveness and compassion, and without a second thought, completely obvious. And so that's the clue that we're seeing this being in a very different light to other beings. And so that just taking that as a theme, you know, if I was my friend, would I be so cruel to me? No. Why would you treat your friend like that? And so just take the kind of obviousness of that, just completely straightforward. So that's the clue that this is deluded thinking. And the wisdom of your own citta, it knows straight away. Well, we all make stupid mistakes. We're not born arahants. And even arahants make mistakes sometimes. Yeah. There's a few, I was saying earlier today, there's a few Vinaya rules that we have because of rather stupid decisions that some arahants made. Their hearts were pure, but their decision-making was a bit dodgy. So we all make mistakes. And that it's so interesting that in Buddhist psychology, sanity comes with arahantship. So until you're an arahant, you're not completely sane. So this is life in the psychiatric ward. So if we look at each other as fellow patients on the ward, rather than people who should be peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, proud and not demanding in nature, you know, you should be an arahant. You should be behaving like an arahant. Why aren't you behaving like an arahant? But that's how we relate to each other. We expect people that we live with to be behaving like arahants. But amazingly, they're guided by greed, hatred, and delusion, and fear and desire. So if you think of it in that way, that sanity comes with arahantship, then we can be a lot more forgiving for each other, our fellow patients on the ward, and that we are can be less judgmental about ourselves and other people. That I'll say the treatment's working very well, and that it's not to make light of psychiatric difficulties as we know them, but I do feel it's helpful to shift the line, because in Western psychology, to be sane means you can function predictably in society, and you don't cause too much trouble for yourself and the people around you. That's the definition of sanity, is a kind of a reasonable degree of composed behavior. That makes you sane. So it's very different. That doesn't even, in Buddhist psychology, you're not even necessarily a manusa. You don't even quite qualify for the human realm. You've got a human body, but a manusa is one who lives according to the 5 precepts or more. And so that it's a very different place that the line is put. So if that makes sense? So when we look at each other in that way, and then we give much more space for people to be reactive, or to be overexcited, or to be anxious, or to be a bit selfish, or not incredibly confident or strong, or that we make space for each other to not be great bodhisattvas, and so dazzlingly wise and peaceful and calm and wise and skillful all the time. So that's my thesis on Buddhist psychology. Please, anyone.
I have something to share with you too. That after become a monk, I find that I can forgive myself easier than I was a lay person. I used to be very hard for to myself. One thing that can be helpful for me is that when I observed my mind and then start to see that how can I make unfair judgment toward myself, because most of the time when I look at myself in the past, I use myself right now, judging myself in the past, which is unfair. Because how can I, use my knowledge, my understanding now, as after I become a monk for 30 years, to judge the 16 years old boy who made mistake at the time, because at the time I myself at 16, I don't have clue about what is it about learning about your own mind. I don't interested in practicing the Dhamma. I don't know the consequence of what I'm doing. So how can I make a better decision at that moment? See? So I probably did the best that I can do at that moment, but then I use myself right now just judging myself that that's not good enough. I don't think it's fair. So I learned to let go of that, judging yourself in the past, and learn to accept it. And like Ajahn Jiew said, that mistake is what we have done, and we learn from it. This is what I share with you.
Could you speak about the first section of the dependent origination? The subject-object making a little bit more. I'm still a little confused. And can we bring mindfulness to this process happening in real time? And if so, is it third foundation or fourth foundation?
So, what can you describe your confusion a little bit?
I'm
What's
not
confusing?
quite understanding what the sankharas are, what the formation is. That I don't quite get the definition of that. I guess it's the I-making aspect, me-making, part of the mind. And then you had said something about how the sankharas and the consciousness and the formations do some sort of feedback loop, I believe, in the other night.
Yeah. Well, it's I would say it is very subtle, so it's difficult to understand conceptually. But so that one of the ways that sankhara is described at that point is volitional formations. So there's a volition, there's like an intended attitude, and then a quality of form as well. So there's a coming into being of a knower and a known, an attitude, a subjectivity, and then a thing that is known. So it's that is because of ignorance and not seeing clearly, then that the seeds of a knower and a known, a here and a there, a subject and an object, that starts to get formed. When there's vijja, then you can call that subjectless, objectless awareness. So that it's known, when vijja is established, it's known that the subject is empty, the object is empty, there isn't a substantial, say, division between those. It's a subjectless, objectless awareness. It's not. There's no kind of rigid division. So the arising of sankhara is where that because of the mind's kind of switching off and not seeing that, then there's the a knower here and a known there. There's a here and a there, a subject and object, an inside and an outside, or me watching my mind, or the mind aware of its activity. So that, in a way, tracking it from the moments of great clarity when vijja is established, then to in a way, tracking it in the meditation is the best thing to do. So in the moments of maximum clarity, then say, okay, what is this quality of knowing like? And then maybe it becomes clear, oh, even calling it an awareness makes it into a sort of a thing. It's not a thing, it's a quality of knowing. And it's not divided into a subject and object, a here and a there. It's the mind awake to its own presence, if you like, or Dhamma aware of its own nature. So then, as there's a noticing of slippage, and the attention is less clear, less acute, then at that moment, okay, now what seems to be here? Oh, there's me looking at my mind. Okay, avijja paccaya sankhara. That's that kind of has come in, and then we're already at the vijnana, the cognizing side, and namarupa, the five khandhas, as the known side. So that even though vijnana is one of the five khandhas, it's kind of confusing, but that in that respect, how I understand it, is that seed of division of subject object then ripens very rapidly into the cognizing part and the cognized part. Here's the mind knowing the activity of the five khandhas. So vijnana and namarupa, and then as it says, they lean upon each other like two bundles of reeds. That namarupa conditions vijnana, vijnana conditions namarupa. The subject conditions the object conditions the subject. So that then that it's all happening in sort of less than a finger snap in terms of psychological rebirth, but you can track that in the meditation. As I was just saying, particularly when the mind is at its clearest. Okay, this is vijja, or in Dzogchen practice. Okay, this is the quality of rigpa. And then as there's a drift, okay, a drift just happened. Now that drift having happened, then here is a sense of a knower and a known, a here and a there, a past and a present, and so on. So then there can be that say capacity to notice that arising of the subject and the object, and the division between those two, and then the strengthening of that division. So there's me watching my mind, or me looking at my experience. That again takes shape very, very fast, and then the attention latches onto a particular sensory activity. So that when it says namarupa paccaya salayatana, so that mind and body, it conditions the six senses. It's like, well, that's again, it's not the only way of understanding it, but it's saying that, well, this is the world. The world is the activity of this, as you know, it is the activity of the six senses, and so that then that division of me here and the knower and the known, that known is taking shape as the six senses of the world. So that, like I was quoting that other sutta the other day, of the Buddha, that whereby one is a perceiver of the world and a conceiver of the world, that is the world in this Dhamma and discipline. And what is it whereby one is a perceiver of the world and a conceiver of the world? The eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind. So this Paticcasamuppāda teaching is kind of relating to that same thing, so that when there is ignorance, then the mind believes in the world. That seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, it takes those to be real and solid, that it latches onto a particular sense contact, a sight, a taste, a smell, a sound. And then that's the passa, and then Vedana Tanna Upadana Bhava Jati. So that that's why I call it the setting up of the subject-object duality, and then the process of perception and feeling. So I do feel with all of these teachings, it's helpful to just take one little piece and bring it into the meditation. So when I first came, I'd never heard of this teaching at all. My first 2 years in Thailand, it was completely new to me. And then coming to England at the end of '79 and living at Chithurst, and then hearing Ajahn Sumedho once in a while mentioning Paticcasamuppāda, then looking up the some of the suttas like the Mahanidana Sutta. I think, well, I can get feeling, conditioning, craving. Okay, got that. But this whole front part, it's like, what the heck's a volitional formation? What is that? And you've got nama rupa, that's got vijnana in it, and you've got vijnana outside it, and then you've got the 6 senses there, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, they're all consciousnesses too. So you've got 3 sets of vijnanas. This is really confusing. And so basically I parked the whole front section of the Paticcasamuppāda and thought, well, okay, I'll get to that later on. But Vedana, conditioning, tanha, and then ending up at dukkha. Okay, that is that's tangible. I can handle that. And so it was not really until about 10 years later. And then when Luang Por Sumedho was actually Tanjakum Payut had published that book, Dependent Origination. Also, Ajahn Buddhadasa had done a book, Dependent Origination. But those in English, and Ajahn Sumedho started to teach that area, and then slowly bringing those particularly the first 5 or 6 links into Dhamma talks. It's like, okay, slowly it began to make sense. But usually it was him taking a particular link or a few links and then talking about it every day for 2 or 3 weeks, and then sitting with that and working with it. So like, for example, he spent about 3 weeks on avijja paccaya sankhara. Every Dhamma talk for 3 weeks, like 2 or 3 times a day, nothing but avijja paccaya sankhara, and trying, just walking you through it and helping you to sort of explore that in the meditation, just as we've been talking now. And he said, basically, the simple way of understanding it is ignorance complicates everything. Don't worry about anything else. All the rest of it, just don't worry about it. Ignorance complicates everything. Okay, that's it. And then his simple version of the Paticcasamuppāda and Paticca is, if you start off with ignorance, you end up with dukkha. If you start off with awareness, you end up with nibbana. That's it. That's the whole program. So, but taking it, the words and the concepts into the practice and just asking those questions. So when we use the word sankhara, avijja paccaya sankhara, so when the mind starts to switch off, what happens? How is this? So, and I found the Luang Por Sumedho's way of leading you into it and helping you to explore for yourself was incredibly helpful, because it's you can get a theoretical map of the whole thing and still be completely a mess in your life. But be writing a PhD about the whole thing. People have done. I know one monk who wrote 2 PhDs on Paticcasamuppāda. But just getting a feeling for how that works. And so that's really how I've sort of based the way I talk about it. And that rather than sort of getting too lost in the theory and the languaging, like say, okay, so this, how can it be that vijnana and namarupa, they lean on each other, they condition each other? Even in the Mahanidana Sutra, it talks about that. They condition each other. So how does that work? How does that function? And that and so you start to look around you in the natural world. Okay, well, sunlight and shadow. If there's sunlight, there's a shadow. If there's no sunlight, there's no shadow. So that they work together. The sunlight is not the shadow is not the sunlight. But if you have the one, you have the other. They lean on each other. Okay, so maybe you could use that as a way of exploring it. So you can just taking examples from the world around you or within you and seeing where things might line up and feeling your way into it. Then you get a living sense of it.
In Vipassana, would it be 4th foundation that we're in when we're investigating these first 4 links?
Essentially, well,
or 3rd?
The 3rd and the 4th, really, because the 3rd foundation is contemplating moods of knowing the expanded mind is expanded, the contracted mind is contracted, and the mind full of anger is full of anger, the mind free of anger. So that's the seeing what's there clearly. But then the fourth foundation is seeing things in terms of Dhamma, seeing things in terms of change. And so it's that's one aspect of it, and that so between the third and the fourth foundation mostly, but in a sense it incorporates all four. But particularly the third and the fourth, and that because the quality of change in that process is happening very, very fast. But at least you can see that, okay, the mind started to switch off, whoops, and we're at dukkha already. It changed. That everything was clear and simple and straightforward, and suddenly, wrongness just came into the picture. And so rather than dwelling on the wrongness, that changed. So that's the active cultivation of the fourth